Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Robbie, and this is The Unhinged Father. It's a podcast for normal folks looking for some humor, connection, relatability, or those who just like the sound of my sultry voice. A place where we can embrace aiming to be better people, but can accept that we will never get there. And that's okay. We're okay. I'm not some enlightened asshole here to tell you how amazing and perfect my life is, and then convince you to buy my how-to guide on how to make your shit not stink. I'm right here in the mud with you, working towards a better life, extending a hand out along the way. Now let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. So who knows, this episode might be a new segment that we start doing here. As I've started to mention at the end of the podcast in that conclusion aspect, there is a send a message to the show functionality of the podcast platform that I'm utilizing that will send me a message directly. Now I can't respond. I can't communicate in any way, shape, or form with the people that are sending me these messages, but I did receive a couple of them. Shockingly enough, I got what they call some fan mail here, and I wanted to take this episode to address some of the people that sent that fan mail into me. So that's what we're going to jump into this episode. It might be a little bit of a shorter one, and who knows, I may end up making this a regular part of the podcast, a new segment, if you may. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to anyone who's sending me fan mail. That's fucking awesome. I really appreciate it. Didn't expect it to come through. Like I said, all 6, 7, 20 of you that are around the world, the diehard Unhinged Father fans, I really appreciate your support, you listening, and hopefully I'm providing you with some humor, some insight, whatever it is that you're coming here to find. One person sent me a fan mail that basically just said that he really appreciated the episode that I went into the conflict I had between the negative and positive thinking. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that. I'm glad that that episode spoke to you. Thanks for sending me a message with your appreciation. Made me feel really good. I appreciate that. And hopefully you continue listening and growing with the podcast. And let me know if there's anything in particular that you want me to touch upon here. The second one that I wanted to go into was just someone sent me a message that appreciated one of the episodes I went into, but he also expressed something that he wanted me to discuss in a podcast episode. So I'm going to dedicate this episode to that subject. I'm not going to go completely into the realm of what he was looking for just because I don't have as much experience there, but I wanted to at least touch upon the broader subject and then try to answer his question or give my thoughts the best that I possibly can. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual episode itself. The subject I'm going to be touching upon today is alcohol and alcoholism. I'm going to dive into that as much as I possibly can. I fortunately am not an alcoholic. I don't struggle with that disease. I have people in my life who struggle with alcohol dependency, but I've never really been involved in a super toxic relationship with anyone who's had alcoholism or who has struggled with that. Nothing that I have this deep insight with, but I do have thoughts on alcohol in general, alcoholism, and just some of the things that we can do as parents, dads, people in general in navigating this world with alcohol and alcohol use. So let's just go ahead and jump on in. Now, even though I said that I'm not an alcoholic and I've never struggled with alcoholism, I have been a heavy user of alcohol in the past. Not anymore. I'm an occasional drinker. Once in a while, if there's a special event, I'll have a glass of wine. I'll have a couple beers. I enjoy alcohol. I think that it's something that if you could use within moderation can be a good thing. But I also know that it could tear people apart and make them do stupid shit. So my background with alcohol, when I was a heavy user, I went to the University of Santa Barbara, University of California in Santa Barbara. So I'm a gaucho, and by default, because I went there, I became a relatively heavy drinker. Lots of beer pong, lots of snappa, drinking pretty much every single night while I was out there. Weekends, heavy binge drinking, some blackouts here and there, stuff I'm not super proud of. But I made it through college, left college, moved away from Santa Barbara, eventually got married, had kids. That in-between time, I still was a fairly heavy drinker up until I'd say I had my first son. I would drink quite a bit. Just, I'm not sure if I was trying to mask emotions or was going through hard times, but I still relied on alcohol pretty heavily. And since I've had my kids, my alcohol consumption has gone way down. I do not drink a ton. I've actually just recently started introducing having drinks on the weekend again with my wife or with friends. But there were definitely weeks, months where I didn't have a drop of alcohol. Family-wise, I have relatives who still use heavy amounts of alcohol. They drink quite a bit. I wouldn't call it that debilitating alcoholism, disease, anything like that. But it is something that they utilize on a fairly regular basis, something that I'm well aware of. And it can sometimes be, a problem. I'm just going to use my own dad as an example. My dad drinks quite a bit, which is fine. Actually, funny story here is when my little sister was young, she, had to make that for Father's Day, had to make his name straight up and down. And then she would write like certain things that were good about my dad. And there was a R in our name. And she decided that she was going to she was in like first or second grade. So it's hilarious. She put really good at drinking. So just fucking hilarious that she utilized that as something to put in like what my dad was good at. But I never had any issues with my dad drinking, right? I think I can only remember a handful of times when he got too drunk and where it was, we were like, oh shit, dad's sick or something like that. I can't really remember a ton of times when it happened, but he would use alcohol pretty frequently. We would know dad was drinking, and it was never anything like, well, we're afraid of dad or what's dad going to do? It was more of a social type thing. And I only say that as like my background, my knowledge of what I have when it comes to my interpersonal relationships, the experience I've had with people who utilize alcohol more regularly. And that's really what it was. We had a great relationship, still have a great relationship with my dad, have drinks with him now. When we were younger, though, it was never anything like that. So I just want to throw that all out there as like a background on me, my relationship with alcohol, and people that have utilized alcohol within my life. It's not something that I have a super negative perspective on. I have changed in the way that I personally approach alcohol use and consumption. And when it comes to the topic of like alcoholism and, people fully withholding from or abstaining from alcohol use, I totally get that. I totally get why someone would not utilize alcohol whatsoever. If they have an addictive personality and they've had issues with it, it's caused them to do terrible things in the past, and their life is shitty when they drink alcohol, then there's no reason that they should drink alcohol. They should abstain from it as much as they possibly can, stay away from situations where they're going to get into, potentially be tempted with alcohol use if they can't control it. I totally get that. Some people are like, oh, just have a beer, just have this. No, fuck that. If someone struggles with it and they've done enough inner research and enough self-reflection to understand that they need to stay away from it, good on them. I'm proud of that. I want them to continue down that road. If you could drink it within moderation, or if you don't do anything super crazy and fuck your life up, at the end of the day, you can do whatever you want, right? If you do shit that's destructive or terrible, it's your prerogative. You can do whatever you want. But I think that the healthiest way to be able to incorporate alcohol into life is with moderation. Someone who utilizes it in social events or likes the taste of it and just isn't getting blacked out drunk constantly. For me personally now as a father, it's not worth it. Like the alcohol's got to be worth it. I do mental math constantly on what it is I'm putting in my body and if the price is worth it, right? Is that next morning, that hangover going to be worth it to me? Is me being a little bit slower mentally going to be worth it to me? Is me going to be being tired the whole fucking day going to be worth it to me? Because no matter what, you stay up late, you drink. If you have kids, your kids are going to get up at the same time. They don't give a shit if you drink. Actually, I'm pretty sure that they have an internal clock or some sort of like sixth sense that if you go out and you drink heavily, they know that they need to wake up early in the morning. Like they need to be up at like 2 a.m. and have a cough, or like 3 a.m. and, throw up or something like that. I'm convinced that they have that. But that's also another thing that kind of keeps me from drinking heavily, is that I have control issues, what I've talked about in the past. And I want to make sure that I'm available to my kids, available to take care of them, take them to the hospital, take them to the doctor. Like I want to always have my wits about me and always be kind of in this position of power, control, to be able to provide for my kids, to be able to take care of them and let loose once in a while. But like I said, it's never to the point where I'm not able to snap out of it, have a glass of wine, a beer, something like that. But I'm still able to really be in control, take care of my family. And if there are those times where I'm deciding like, hey, it's party time, let's go back to the gaucho days, and I'm going to have, a 30 pack of Coors Light or a couple of IPAs, whatever it is, I make sure that I've got someone there who's responsible for taking care of my kids as opposed to me being the one who's responsible. So things have changed with me. My relationship with alcohol has changed. You do whatever best for you, but that's just, like I said, a background for my thoughts on alcohol consumption, all that good stuff. Now, I wanted to dive into the specific question or topic that this person who sent in some fan mail requested that I dive into. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that now, and a little bit of background. And I don't want to share too much of this person, even though I don't know his name or anything like that. But this is more of a personal story. He shared it with me. He asked me to dive into it, to get my thoughts on it. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into that here. And he shared that he struggled with alcoholism, destructive behavior for a good portion of his life. And he's been clean and sober, which congrats, good job on that. I'm glad that you've made that change and that you see that you needed to make that change in your life. But he has adult children and now has grandchildren. And I think what he was asking in the fan mail was more so like my thoughts on how he can build and repair that relationship when, his kids have seen this destructive behavior for their entire lives. And now he's really trying to show them that he is no longer this destructive person. He's not an alcoholic anymore. And he's really a changed person, and he wants to be a part of their lives. I'm assuming a part of his grandkids' lives. And I do have some thoughts on this that I wanted to dive into, because it's a tough situation for everyone involved. And I think the toughest part of this, or at least my thoughts on this, is the toughest part that's going to go on here is that the person who had destructive behavior, I'm just going to call him Tim for purposes of being able to refer back to this person. That's not his name. I know one Tim. But the hardest part that's going to be going on for Tim is that he's going to have to constantly let his hand out there, extend his hand, an olive branch, constantly showing his kids, his family, that he's a changed person. But there's not going to be any guarantee that they're going to accept that change, or that they're going to change their perspective on him or what they think of him. They spent their entire formative years growing up knowing someone who was going through these issues with alcoholism, with the destructive personality traits, all these things that were going on. And that's really how they formed their image of him. And it's very difficult to be able to just say, I'm a changed person now. You need to trust what I'm doing. And I get both sides of it, right? I understand that Tim has changed. He's made these changes. It's been really difficult for him. He was going through all of these issues with being an alcoholic and going through this disease, this addiction. But I also understand that his kids are probably not willing to forgive that quickly, or that they still have these underlying questions or concerns about their dad, the one that they saw growing up, who would do whatever it is he would do, especially when you've got kids, right? I know that it would be very difficult for me as a father to trust someone that I saw do shit that was so destructive when I was a kid. I don't know if I'd ever be able to get over that. I'm hoping that I would, but I don't know if I ever would. And I think that's going to be the tough part for Tim, is that if you really want to try and gain your trust again with your family, with your kids, you're going to constantly have to show them this person who's changed. You're going to constantly have to continue to prove yourself to them, and understanding that even though you reach that hand out, you show them that you've changed, that it's completely their choice to not accept that fully, or to still have questions, or to still doubt you. And they can still have these feelings of resentment towards you. And that could be really hard, right? I'm sure that you're probably sitting there like, what the fuck? I've changed. I'm doing everything that I possibly can to connect with you, to reach out to you, to be the father, to make up for what I did in the past. And they're still rejecting it. And all I can say is that you need to not make it about yourself. As hard as that is, you need to not make it about you, because as soon as you start making it about you, that means you've fallen back into those old habits that you had. Even if you're not drinking the alcoholism, you've made it about yourself. You made it about you as opposed to making it about your children, about your grandchildren. This is something that a lot of grandparents struggle with a lot of times, and not just with alcoholism, but anything, right? If a parent, if one of their kids is a parent now and they criticize how the grandparents raised them and don't want to raise their kids that way, they take it personally and they take it out on them. I know it's difficult not to take it personally, but it's not really about you. It's about your kids, what they want for their family. You had your chance with your family when they were younger. You're still a part of it. And if you want to be a part of it, you're going to have to continually really swallow that ego and just continually reach that hand out there. And even if they swat it away or you get stung with harsh words, criticism, or rejection, you constantly have to continue to reach out in a graceful way, showing that you're a changed person, that you've made these changes and you want to be in their life. And the hardest part about all of this is that there's no guarantee that they're ever going to accept it, that you are ever going to make that connection, that redemption, that there's going to be this complete healing. In all honesty, there probably never will be a complete reconciliation between you and your children, just because they grew up knowing whatever it was for so long. And you've got to be okay with that. And if you can't do that, if you can't continue to swallow your pride, continue to show up in ways that it's supportive for your kids, your grandkids, show them you're a changed person, be trustworthy, not be emotional, not be defensive, not attack out, not lash out at your kids if they're still having resentment issues or trust issues. Because as soon as you start to lash out, like I said, you make it about yourself, you show them that you're still focused on yourself as opposed to focus on them, and they're just going to go right back to where they were when you were having those issues with alcoholism. And at that point, you might as well just give up now, not go through all that hardship, because it's going to hurt. It's going to be hard to extend grace, to be calm, to take rejection, to do all of these things. It's going to be very difficult for you as a person to take that all on. But if you want that relationship with your kids, if you want that chance at a relationship with your grandkids, that's this ideal, I'm guessing this ideal that you want in your future life, that you want to have that relationship with them, then you've got to be willing to put in the work. If not, you got to give up now. And you could do everything right. You could do everything right. You could do everything I just said or suggested, and it still could end up not working out the way that you want it to. It could still end up being that your kids still hold on to all this stuff and you don't have that relationship. There is not the repair you're looking for. But this, in my opinion, is the chance that you have to repair, to connect, and to move forward with your family, with your kids, with your grandkids. And I empathize with you. I apologize if it's coming across like really harsh and, you know, that you're already doing this stuff right. I could be just sitting here spouting bullshit and you're just like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about because you haven't dealt with this before. You've never dealt with alcoholism or you haven't been in this situation. You're 100% right. These are just my thoughts on it and in talking to other people and the different type of experiences I've had over my life. This is where I've kind of landed on where I think the best route would be for you. And I really hope that you're able to find that connection, to find that redemption, that you're able to find this reconciliation with your family and that you guys have a great life together, that you're able to be a part of their lives, your grandkids' lives, and have a happy continuation of a life that you've already been living. I really hope that you get that. And hopefully some of this resonates with you. Like I said, I empathize. You have a hard task ahead of you. If this is really what you're going through, I could also be making up all of this stuff in my head because all I got was a paragraph that, you had sent me in fan mail. And I wanted to make sure that I addressed that, gave you my thoughts on it. And if you are going through all that, I empathize deeply with you. And I wish you all of the best luck when moving forward with that. And anyone who deals with alcoholism or drug addiction or any of those things, gambling addiction, all of these kind of run within the same vein. I guess the messaging that I have behind this is if you've struggled with that or you've hurt people along the way in your life, that you are going to have to make amends for those things. And if you want to continue those relationships or to foster those relationships and move them forward, you are going to have to swallow the ego, be willing to show people that you've changed, but also accept the fact that it's their right not to accept that you've changed, to question if you've changed, to question if you're different, to still have hurts and pains and wounds from years and years of them dealing with you when you did have these issues. And also knowing that there's still the chance that you could relapse back into those old habits, that you can fall back into these things that were really difficult for you throughout your life. Life is already hard enough as it is, and this is just an added layer that makes it even more difficult for you. So I empathize with the fact that it's going to be really difficult. And if you are someone who's struggled with this, I really hope that you're able to push past it and continue on, make a good life, and stay on the straight and narrow. Alcoholism's a real bitch, and it can be fucking devastating to anyone that has to deal with it. The the people that are alcoholics, it's devastating. To the wives, the husbands, the sons, the daughters, nephews, nieces, everyone, it can be a real bitch and really create some terrible wounds to everyone. So, like I said, this is maybe a little bit of a different episode here. I got that fan mail. I wanted to make sure that I reached out and kind of answered those questions to the best of my ability. And hopefully that's what I did. I wanted to touch a little bit about my thoughts on alcohol as well. I'm definitely not an alcohol denier. I grew up Roman Catholic, so, wine, love it. But yeah, make sure that if you are going to drink wine, drink beer, drink whiskey, whatever it is, whatever your drug of choice is, if you are going to do that, make sure you're using it responsibly, moderation, and try to make sure that you're not hurting people along the way, right? That's the biggest thing. So that is probably going to be it for this episode. I think that that's a lot of what I wanted to do today. Continue to send out that fan mail. Like I said, or like I'm going to say in the ending here, I can't respond back to it directly. There is no functionality. I have no clue. There's no contact information or anything like that. So if you send the fan mail, I could talk about it here on the podcast, but I can't respond to you in any other way. So again, I appreciate the fan mail. I hope that you all continue to listen. And that's going to do it for this episode. That's it for this week's episode. I appreciate you all being here with me. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasting needs met. If you feel the show deserves it, leave a 5-star review. It really helps. For more content, follow me on social media. In the episode description, you'll find a send me a message button. Use it to suggest topics or share your thoughts about the episode. Just a heads up, I can't see who sent the message or respond to it in any way. So if you would like a response or you want to be a guest on the show, send me an email at unhinged.father@gmail.com. Thank you for your support. Have a fantastic day. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.